Knowledge for Men, episode 67.
Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where you're going to grow into the man you want to be. Your life will never be the same again. I can guarantee it.
Hey guys, just got back from the Art of Charm 6-day attraction boot camp in Los Angeles, and for those of you that already know, I wrote a really big review on the blog, knowledgeformen.com. You can check that out there. The whole program was really good. You know, you dive deep into social dynamics, limiting beliefs, and old thought patterns, really just destroy all those bad behaviors and thought patterns that were holding you back. And the instructors really help you create a new belief system for yourself. And through this process, you're learning, you're getting on-the-spot feedback from both female and male instructors, and then you just go out and implement what you just learned. You know, it's extremely effective, and in this episode, I have here one of the founding members of the Art of Charm, and I really just wanted to share with you guys some of what I learned at that boot camp in this episode for you guys, and to get a little backstory on where this gentleman came from and how he got involved. And it was just that good that, I wanted to get more of these guys on the show and share, what's going on up there in Los Angeles with you guys here. So let's dive in. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Johnny Dzubak. He's been a touring musician much of his life and wanted to contribute positively to the world and was interested in the power of personal transformation. He began educating himself in social dynamics, which led him into starting the Art of Charm with Jordan and AJ Harbinger. Johnny is all about getting rid of the game and wanted to find a natural way to bring out the best qualities in men. All right, Johnny, I'm happy to have you on the show.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. And I just wanted to mention, not only did it lead me coaching to the Art of Charm, it led me starting this company with AJ and Jordan.
All right. And Johnny, let's now jump in with a favorite success quote. I kick off every show with a quote or something that the guest has lived by, and if you can explain why. So what do you got for us, Johnny?
I thought about this, and there's obviously so many, and I'm sure a lot of guys probably say the same thing about this on your show. But there's one more so than success, one that made me think. And that's what today I think we're going to talk a lot about is, scientific method and thinking critically. And so I want to use an Aaron Ra quote, which is, ignorance isn't about what you don't know, it's what you won't know. And that struck me as very profound.
And how has this been a part of your life?
Well, once you start realizing that the narrative or reality that you've built for yourself may not be what is real, what is not, it's a belief that has been given to you from either a medium of movies, television, news, your family, your parents, rather than finding out the actual truth behind it and seeing that there wasn't a lot of truth to the reality that I had built up for me, led me to question everything because I didn't want to live an ignorant life of false beliefs and false walls and a false narrative that didn't bode well for me to be successful in my life, nor happy. And both of those, I see those linked together. Success to me is about being happy and enjoying your life. So false restraints or restraints that won't allow me to achieve that is nothing that I want to have be a part of my life.
And I want to point out, I really like that you said, success is about being happy. It's about, loving yourself and really just being happy with who you are, where you're at, what you got going for you right now. It's not this end goal, like this financial end goal or finally when you get that girl.
Well, everything else comes easy when you're happy.
Exactly. And now, Johnny, I'm already excited for this episode. So let's learn more about you and let's go into your mind. Let's hear your story. Let's hear your past. So go ahead and share with the audience your journey of how you got started with what you do.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in a very small town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In its development, it was a minor town. It was called Greensburg, and it was about 30, 40 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. And basically, when the industry in that town closed up in about the 70s, basically my town closed up. And when the steel mills moved out of Pittsburgh, when the mines were all dried up, my town, which was was booming back then, ended up, as when I was growing up there, about 14,000 people and very boarded up, very lonely, in a cold, dark, gray place. And when you grow up in a place, it just looks bombed out and boarded up. it can play a role in your psyche. I always felt that there was more outside of that town. And it was also one of those places where people just got old really fast. They didn't really aspire to really do much of anything. Getting a decent paying job and spending your rest of your life having a family and watching your kids grow up and them having kids. And that was it. And that to me, as you know, as for some people, that was fine. But for me, it was, I saw it as a jail cell. It was scary. It was dark and gray, and it wasn't anything that I wanted to be a part of. And of course, got into art early. Playing music was a big deal for me. I got very moved by the sounds that I've heard on the radio, and I wanted to be a part of that. And of course, growing up, my father played in a local band that just played in the local bars. And to me, watching him rehearse all week and get ready on the weekends to go play a show, and it just seemed so much fun. And of course, I gravitated to that at an early age. And my dad then started taking me to bars to run production for his band. And here I am, 13, 14 years old, and in these corner bars, seeing all these women who are done up and watching and dancing to the band. It was very easy to get attracted and want to chase that. And so at a very early age, I wanted to play music, and there was no way that town was going to hold me there and keep me from doing that. And I spent all of my teenage years trying to figure out how I was going to get out of there. And, at 21, I got the opportunity to move to North Carolina, start my music career. I spent basically my 20s on the road, having a blast. But then when I was rolling into my 30s and all the time I spent on the road, there was times where I wasn't really thrilled what was going on. And I realized that a lot of that had to do with my mindsets and what I was focusing on. And that's when I started to change. Now, I'm 40 now, but that's when I started to change my outlook and view of how I was going to deal with the world and myself. And this is when I was able to start looking at philosophy and cognitive behavioral therapy and things in that nature to readjust the way I was viewing my world and filtering in the experiences that I was having. And so I can enjoy those things that I was doing rather than being upset about them.
So what were some of those belief systems that were holding you back? It sounds like you had some sort of aha moment back when you were traveling.
Well, everyone is indoctrinated into their parents' belief systems or the school's belief systems. And for me, in a very small town, it was mentioned that people don't leave there. Everything is the same as this town. And of course, growing up in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, it was a factory mentality. Being tougher in the world was out to get you. It ain't fair. You're going to have to slug it out every day. And if you're tougher than the day, then you win and you get to go to bed and get up and fight all over again. And of course, that's the way I viewed the world. Every night I went to sleep and every day I woke up ready to start swinging and be tougher and then meet each wall and punch and scratch and claw that wall till that wall came down and move to the next one. And after 10 years of that in the music industry, it got really tiring. And it wasn't just, in the music industry, it was in my romantic ventures. It was in my friendships. It was my socialization. Everything was filtered through that sort of mentality. Granted, did that mentality allow me some successes? Yes, because of my tenacity and stubbornness. But when I look back upon it now, it's like, wow, things didn't need to be so difficult. It takes a while to go through the motions to decide that you want to change that attitude and change the way you want to see things.
Yeah, it really seems like your environment played such a critical role in your upbringing, in your psyche, in the way that you think, in the way that you perform, go throughout your day. You mentioned earlier, wake up and then be harder than the day. And if you get to go to bed knowing that you did, and then you get to do it all over again, which just doesn't sound like much of a reward.
Oh, and it's not only growing up there. It's not, you see it in the news. You get that idea from school. You get that idea from your friends, families, and neighbors. I mean, it's so ingrained in the culture, even to its sports teams. And I mentioned this at the boot camp. if you think about what the Pittsburgh Steelers identity is, it's blue collar, lunch pail, go in, slug it out. If you're tougher and more physical than the other team, you'll squeak out a win. And then you get to do it next week. And when that is all around you and that's all you know, it's very hard to think that there's a different way. And until you start looking for it. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, it came into my late 20s, looking at my 30s, going, "There's got to be another way. This is ridiculous." And and I think you could even have told me that there was another way at 21 years old, but I probably wouldn't have believed you. I was already made up. My mind was made up. I was already indoctrinated to how this was going to roll. And so I had to go out, experience it for myself, and go, all right, I've had enough. Let's try something else.
And that's a key point right there. I mean, when we're 20, 21, we're young, you think you know it all.
Oh, yeah.
And you think you got all the answers and you got it all figured out, and no one knows anything better. But, like you said in experience, once you go through enough pain, then you're going to start looking for some other alternatives.
Well, the fun thing about it was that my love for music trumped all fears and everything else. So it's like, if you put up a wall in front of me, let's say, okay, when you're a young kid, you want to play for the first time. The wall is going on stage with your band, or even trying to get a gig in the first place might be the wall, right? But my love of music trumped my fear of asking people for a show. But that love of music threw me in there, and as many times as I got told no, I finally got a yes. And then getting on stage is the next wall. And as nervous as I was and as horrible as that first gig was, there's another one, because my love of music trumped the horrible first show. And of all those things, music trumped all that. And luckily for me, I was so passionate about that allowed me to move through all these different walls and help me learn that lesson. I mean, when it came down the failing, I didn't mind if it was, as long as it had to do with music, because I always felt I tried. But other areas of my life, I was still a little bit nervous or scared, or didn't love anything enough to go ahead and learn about it through an ass kicking.
Yeah, it sounds like it was your passion that really helped you overcome those fears. And it's got to be challenging. You're cold selling yourself. You don't have a record yet. You're trying to get these gigs.
Well, not even a gig. How about just trying to find some other dork to go in a rehearsal room with you and bash out 10 songs to play out? And not only one guy, you got to find 3 or 4 other guys who are like, all right, yeah, we don't know enough. Like, we'll all go in here and we'll figure it out. But once again, the love of music trumped the fear of being social, trying to find somebody else who wants to play, putting an ad in the paper, let alone people showing up to audition and you don't even know what you're actually looking for to even let alone know who you want in your band or not. It's just, you'll figure it out. But my love of music was stronger than not knowing anything. And so I was willing to go through the process of figuring that out.
And what about the guys the guys listening who haven't found their thing yet? Like, they haven't found their passion yet, so per se. And they're still working in an environment that doesn't serve them, or they're doing something that they don't like. Just really going with the flow of the environment around them. And just like your environment had a huge impact on you in an extreme example, everyone's environment plays a critical role in where they're at right now and the way that they think and their goals going forward. So what kind of advice do you have for guys who haven't found their thing just yet?
I think there's a big mistake of looking and finding your passions and making your passions. And I'm more of a believer in making your passions. If you're interested in something, dive in, figure it out. Like, is it for you? Sometimes I just think people are waiting to be struck over the head with, like, oh my God, I found it. I don't think it's like that at all. It's, you're interested in how far down the rabbit hole does that interest take you? But you're only going to find out if you get active and jump in the rabbit hole, and allow yourself to fail at it and to be terrible at it. When I picked up a guitar, I was awful. And not only was I awful, I asked for lessons. And my dad was like, hell no, I'm not getting you lessons so you can learn to play like somebody else. Which, now, earlier I was like, he's just being a cheapskate. Well, now I totally understand because, I have my own style. It may have been a bit of both, but I loved it so much. I wanted to learn more. I would just buy records and learn to play with them. I even held my guitar in front of the television and would try to play to anything that I heard that was on television, whether it was a game show tunes, whether it was sitcom intros and outros. And of course, when MTV came out, I was glued to it. And this is at a time, and many, some of your young members or listeners, wouldn't know that, but MTV, when it actually first came out, it played music videos. And not only did it play music videos, it was a very rock and roll channel. And so it was great. And now I look back and my God, I wish I had YouTube and the internet. Oh my God, I would never leave my fucking room. I would play my guitar all day, all night long.
Just being lost in your passion, like lost in time with that.
Oh yeah. And the other thing that I got involved in at a young age, I think it was like 13 or 14, was skateboarding. And this is at a time when skateboarding in Greensburg, Pennsylvania was not cool. And not only was it not cool, you got your ass beat for skateboarding. But once again, I loved it so much. I got so lost in it that it's all I wanted to do. And if I wasn't skateboarding, I was playing guitar. And if I wasn't playing guitar, I was skateboarding. And I was so absorbed in both that I even got concerned about what I was going to put more time into. And it wasn't until I turned about 19 where I was like, well, this is the time where I need to fully focus on music. And so, I still skated here and there, but music then trumped all the skateboarding. But for a while, I had a mini half in my basement. I had ramps out in the street. Of course, I had a full on rehearsal room downstairs. I was just lost. I was just lost in those things. And girls would take away from skateboarding. Girls would take away from playing guitar. In fact, I was so obsessed with skateboarding and guitar that I was even kind of a late bloomer in losing my virginity because there was just girls to me were taking away from my two loves. And it was just until the hormones were just so overwhelming that I had to drop one of the two for girls, which was skateboarding. But yeah, it's as I said, you don't find it, don't look for it, make it. Like, what is it you're interested in? Dive in, go down the rabbit hole, get involved, and find other people who are interested in it as well. It's all about discovery and unity and connecting with other people.
Make it, don't find it. I like that. And now, Johnny, share with us more about your journey to Los Angeles.
So yeah, living in North Carolina for what was it, 12 years, and then of course when I was rolling into my 30s, my band at the time kind of folded, and I was looking for something else to do. But I was also interested in a new way of life. I was like, you know what? I have not achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, but with everything that I have achieved, why am I not happy? At that time, I've toured much of North America, some of Europe, and had records. And it's like, wow, every time I would say, oh, if I get this record out, or oh, if I go on this tour, I'll be so much better. Well, how come I've done all these things and I'm still pissed off and angry? And it was at that time that I just figured there was another way of going about it. And then, that's when you start asking questions and you start looking at other people and finding people who seem to be happy, seem to have things going for them. Talk to those people. You start reading. I got really into self-development was the first sort of pillar in that. And I realized that I had a lot of things that I was angry about that I didn't need to be angry for. And I found out that I had a lot of things to be excited about that I wasn't excited for. And from that road got into cognitive behavioral therapy, which I really enjoyed. And of course, that led one thing to another. That leads into, the tenets of Stoicism and philosophy. And once again, down another rabbit hole of things that I really enjoyed and got really interested in. which led me to doing public speaking, which led me to working for a small company in DC, which led me to meeting AJ and Jordan, from Pickup Podcast. I didn't even know what a Pickup Podcast was when I met them. And of course, that had led me to starting this company with them in New York to now here we are. I'm 40 years old and I live in Los Angeles, and we enjoy the work that we do, and we have a lot of fun doing it. And at this point, you have just come through, and I think it shows on everybody's faces that you worked with who are part of the Art of Charm, how much we enjoy this job and what we do.
Yeah, you guys are doing great work up there in Los Angeles. And I remember one of the classes you were teaching on creating a new belief system and controlling your emotions and really fixing that internal battle that's going on inside your mind, which is, we talked about, preventing you from doing the things that you really want to do and being the person that you really want to be. And so identifying the insecurities that you have in yourself and the ones that you have in other people, I just found to be one of the most powerful aspects of the class. And that's one of the reasons why, I have you here. It's just because you moved me so much that I was compelled to get you on this show and share some of the things that I learned in the program right here with my community. So can you help our audience better understand how they can create a new belief system for themselves to really create the life that they're looking for?
Well, the first step is just to go, you know what? I don't know everything and I'm not perfect. And be okay with that. That is the first step, because what I'm about to tell you is everything that you might be thinking for your whole life right now might be wrong. And guess what? You're not going to like that. And I know that I didn't like that, but I wanted to be happy and I wanted to change the way I saw things. And I wanted to make sure that I was looking at things and more of a, not only optimistic, but in a realist sense that actually made sense. And the easiest way I can put this is perhaps like you walk down the street and a few girls pass you and they start giggling. Well, depending on what you believe about yourself, it's going to depend on the experience you just have. And if you believe that you're unattractive, then you think those girls are making fun of you and laughing at you. And if you believe you're a charismatic young man, then you're going to believe that those girls were laughing because they thought you were attractive and cute. Well, that's, for two different people, that experience, but one event, two different outcomes. Well, which one of those are true? Well, I don't know. But why am I going to take the bad one? Why am I going to take the good one? Well, a little bit too much optimism is a bad thing as well. But there's a healthy common ground that doesn't have you feeling bad about yourself and doesn't have you being delusional. But the other side of that is, delusion at times can be it can be very, very fun, especially if you understand that you are taking the optimistic side and you are having fun with it. And that, to me, is where a lot of fun comes in. It's like, what is the truth? Well, I don't really know, but here's what I'm going to make of it. And it's that narrative that we tell ourselves. And there's a lot of ways of going about it. But the first part, as I said, is, just go ahead and admit that you are not perfect and you make mistakes. It's hard to do. It's a hard thing to just understand that we don't know and we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. That's the first step in being able to laugh at the situation. And then from there, there's two tenets in science that I really enjoy. One is the truth at any cost, including the cost of your life, which means that's a very virtuous thing, right? That I am always going to look for the truth. And then the other tenet is look at things under your nose as if you've never seen them before and proceed from there. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, we all have these biases that we live by. The brain works by producing patterns and putting those patterns in a way that gives you the world. That's how it works. And sometimes it puts together patterns that are not even there, but those patterns make up a bias. And that bias for most human beings is based on scarcity and it's based on fear. Why is it based on scarcity and fear? Because that is what kept us evolving as a human species all these hundreds of thousands, millions of years, whatever. And we needed that. But in today's world, if putting yourself out there, being social, connecting with other people, you can't do that from fear. You can't do that from scarcity. And anyone that you look in business, and for as many of these shows that you've listened with Andrew, how many of those success quotes come from abundance, come from failing?
Honestly, probably all of them.
So if that's success, but yet we're geared towards scarcity, well, how's that going to help me go from a scarcity to abundance and feeling good about failing? So, I mean, so then it becomes, as I said, looking at those biases and understanding, well, here's the things underneath me, underneath my nose that I don't normally pay attention to, that now I need to pay attention to, because I need to know if this is holding me back or allowing me to move forward. Now, I'll tell you, growing up in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, in a coal town, in a steel town, scarcity and fear was heavy duty. It was the fight every day was all about scarcity. And if you're tougher, then you're going to win out. Well, if you go into the world expecting to fight, guess what you're going to find?
You're going to find a lot of fights.
You're going to find some fights. Whether or not those fights are physical or just how you deal with people or how you view an event or a situation, that's the way you're going to see it. So it's, once again, look at things underneath your nose as if you've never seen them before and proceed from there. And picking up all these tiny little things, realizing, oh, every day isn't a fight. And in fact, the girls weren't making fun of me when they passed me. There's all those sorts of things that started to come. So then, now that I'm questioning every little cognitive bias that I have, I start questioning everything around me. What is real? What isn't real? What did I make up? What come from my environment from growing up where I did? What came from the friends that I have now? You know what? In fact, I want to think for myself, and I'm going to look at every bias. I'm going to look at every thought that I have, because you'd be surprised how many thoughts come from scarcity and fear. And you'd be surprised how many thoughts have little to no data backing them up. I made the joke in class about, you're a young guy, you finally get the courage to go out one night, you see a cute group of Asian girls in the corner and you roll over, and they're not very socialized, so they're kind of scared. So not to have any of the girls make fun of them, they just all decide to start shredding you. And now all of a sudden, how long do you let the idea of Asian girls are not going to be into you be in your psyche? Well, that's a thought that has little to no data to back it up.
Or you can just dread on that and make it fact by telling yourself that it's true. And Johnny, another thing that was really powerful in the program was developing that warrior spirit. And I found this to be really impactful for really changing your beliefs.
Oh, it's definitely not being passive. I will not be passive on my thoughts and cognitive biases anymore. I will look at each one of them as if I never seen it before, and I'll ask these questions. What data do I have to back up this thought? Right? That's one question. Is it logical that I feel this way of this thought? Maybe so, maybe not. Is it something that I can control? No. Well, then I don't need to feel any way about it. No one can make me feel any way. Only myself. Is there an alternative explanation for what my thought is? And these are all questions that I'm going to ask myself. I will not be passive on self-defeatist thoughts, scarcity thoughts, fear thoughts. Not only will I not tolerate it from myself, I won't tolerate it from anyone around me. And if I hear it around me, you'll either A, be corrected, which you're not going to like, or B, you're not going to find yourself in my inner circle, because you were slowly taking away from me correcting myself and making sure that I'm living in a world that's based on reality rather than scarcity and fear.
And so, Johnny, from coaching for so long and being involved in this industry, what have you seen are some common examples of things that hold guys back?
My favorite is everyone likes to think that they're special. and it's always, I always get questions like, well, in my town, it's different. Or for me, it's different. Well, what makes you think that you're different than everybody else? What makes your town so different than anyone else's. Sure, it may be a little bit smaller or it might be bigger, but the temperament of the people are not different in your town than the temperament of any other place. And people are people anywhere you go. There's slight nuances, but in general, everyone wants to be happy. Everyone's looking to connect, and everyone's looking to be the best that they can be. And I'll tell you another thing: women across the globe like confident, humor-filled, fun guys. So, and that's my favorite is when I hear, oh, the girls in my town, they wouldn't fall for any of this stuff. Really? They don't like fun, cool, confident men? Wow, that must be a sad place to live.
So you see a lot of guys who have, or they think they have like this special problem that's only unique to them and that they're the only ones who have to go through it.
Well, I think that everyone has something special about them, but to think that they're not a part of the human race is just preposterous. And as part of the human race, there is something equally special about you, but you're not above the race itself.
Right, right. And just to pivot a little here and go into something you mentioned earlier about Stoicism, the Greek philosophy, how has this played a role in your life and what kind of impact has it had on you?
Well, it's funny. They talk about the Aaron Beck is the godfather of cognitive behavioral therapy. And before him, the great-great-grandfather is Albert Ellis of emotional behavioral therapy. And way before Albert Ellis, we have the Stoics. And the Stoics is basically there's things that you can control and things you are not in control of. And you're not in control of events. You're not in control of your body. You're not in control of other people. But what you are in control of is your emotions and your beliefs. And if you have the right belief, then you won't be so emotionally bent out of shape. So let's just say I'm at the mall and some girl cuts in front of me with her cart or whatever, and I can take it that everyone's out to get me. In fact, when I was a young man, I used to have an attitude similar to that. And of course, I was like, look at her. She's out to get me. She saw me personally standing there and she just threw her cart there in front of me and got in line. And what a fucking bitch. And I could be pissed off about this all day. But what's really going on here? Probably she's been too focused on her own self. She didn't see me whatsoever. And probably if she knew that she did, she'd probably even apologize. So I could care less and don't put much thought to it, and it doesn't bother me at all. Which one's better? Which one is going to help me live a better life? Which one is going to allow me to enjoy every day? And this is the kind of thinking that when I was, as a young man, I would go to bed and think, I'd be exhausted and think about what kind of fight do I have to put up with tomorrow? And then when I got into things like cognitive behavioral therapy and Stoicism, I used to go to bed laughing about all the crazy stuff that happened that day and what amazing, great stuff is going to happen tomorrow. And it was the flip of a switch. And now Stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy and any other sort of way of life or philosophy has its pitfalls. And that's what makes it fun. Are you up for the challenge? You will make mistakes. That's okay. But every day that you practice it, you're going to get better and better. One of the things that I feel that you don't hear the word stoicism very much anymore. And that's because and listen, you're doing yoga, so you might like this. Stoicism has a lot of reflecting and introspection to go about it, which means it wants you to look at yourself and be honest with yourself. Truth is another tenet of Stoicism, about what's going on and what have you done well with and what haven't you done well with and what can you get better with. And I think with today, there's not a lot of reflection going on anymore with Facebook and iPhones and everything else. That's why, to me, my morning run that we were talking about earlier is so important to me. I go out, it's an hour and a half. That run is mostly self-reflection. That run is, what am I going to be working on today? That run is getting my head together. And without that run, I would have to find some other place to go ahead and take care of that. And I think that's why you don't hear the words stoicism very much anymore. But as I said, a more modern version of that is cognitive behavioral therapy. And just because it's therapy doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Once again, it's just a modern term for stoicism. It's bringing to light that you're disconnected with these situations, and that each event can give you whatever outcome you allow it to. And will you be in control of that outcome, or are you going to allow, hundreds of thousands of years of programming dictate how you feel?
I like that you said stoicism is just like modern day therapy. And it really is. When you're being asked questions that you otherwise probably wouldn't ask yourself. And it gives you that time for self-reflection. And speaking of that run, I'm sure you have a few distractions on that run, Johnny.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the other part that I like about it. Yes, there's lots of beautiful girls on that trail in Hollywood.
All right. And Johnny, let's now jump into the knowledge round. It's where I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
All right, Johnny, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or unsure of their purpose in life?
Once again, I would go back to make it. What are you interested? Dive in. Don't be scared about it. Be curious and get curious about a lot of things. And if whatever you're curious about, look it up, go find it, find other people who are interested in it, invade it, get in it.
All right. And Johnny, what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
For me, like I said, everything changed for me when I decided that there must be a new way of viewing the world rather than it was out to get me and every day was a fight. And, allowing myself to know that the beliefs that I had put together for myself and the world around me were not built with any solid foundation. And once I realized that and could let go that I didn't know everything, then I was able to then be able to rebuild a belief structure that was based in fact, that had a solid foundation, and that would allow me to be happy rather than upsetting me. And, through the week that you spent at the Art of Charm, as you saw, the first few days were spent on trying to get you to push the boundaries of your beliefs and see that, hey, things are a little bit different than maybe you had thought.
Yeah, it was like forget everything that you've learned before and try these new things out. Give it a shot. Give it a try.
Yeah, and so let's test some of these ideas. And now that things maybe not as what they seemed, well, now let's go ahead and put together a belief restructuring that fits this new idea and also that allows us to be happy and successful.
Huh. And Johnny, have you had a mentor in your life, someone who's played that mentor role? What did he or she tell you that really had that impactful moment for you?
Wow. That's a crazy one. I'm a book nerd, and so I read a lot. And there's so many different folks who've been involved in my upbringing as of 40 years. There's all my musical heroes. Keith Richards, Johnny Thunders, but those are also some of the people that I think got me in a little bit of trouble at an early age as well. Moving, I would say later in life, when I got into belief restructuring, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Krauss, Howard Bloom, these thinkers, Dan Dennett, Sam Harris, like these people really had me challenging so many beliefs. And especially like guys like Christopher Hitchens, who just attacks all the sacred idols and shreds them. And it'll just, even if you don't happen to agree with what these people are saying, they allow you to look at it from another angle where you're just like, oh my God, I've never thought of it that way. And these are all pretty controversial writers, but also the top of their field in their academic careers. So those guys to me were a big deal. And in fact, I continue looking for more of those hard thinkers and reason guys and other avenues. The latest guy, as I mentioned, was Howard Bloom. To me is kind of like this crazy crank dude who has a lot of righteous stuff to say, But as much stuff as I do agree with him, there's so much stuff that I don't agree with him. But yet, when I don't agree, he still makes enough valid point where I'm like, well, okay, well, I that's interesting. I will ponder that for a while. So for me, it's anyone who can drive me to heavy, heavy thinking.
All right. Now, and just talking about books, what are your three most influential books? And if you can explain why.
Oh wow! For a guy who reads so much different stuff, that's a tough one. I all right. Well, let's just do like one from my rock and roll world, right? I would say that's "Please Kill Me" by Legs McNeil, and that's about the '70s New York artist, Bowery, CBGB's explosion. I just finished "Give and Take" by Adam Grant. Oh, and then my other book will be The Art of Personality. No, I'm sorry. The Art of Possibility. The Art of Possibility. And I cannot remember the author at the moment. I'm so many books through that, but that was a book that I read in my early 30s that was another critical thinking book that just had me ripping apart every belief that I had put together. And it basically just allows you to start examining everything, that everything has just been made up and it's all been invented. And you're allowed to start tearing apart all these sacred cows. It also is a great book in linguistics where it allows you to speak in a certain manner that I don't know the correct word I would use for it. So it allows you to speak in a manner that has you taking responsibility. And in fact, there's a few different big pieces to that book, but you don't have any control over anything until you take responsibility for it. That's the first step. That's the first step in challenging your beliefs, taking responsibility that you have beliefs. And I was also one of those people that I was so involved in music that I didn't want to get into an idea of what I believed and what I didn't believe because to me, I was like, that doesn't matter with what I'm doing playing music. Well, it did have a big component of what it did have a good big component to do with the way I viewed life. And so when I wanted to change how I was viewing things, I had to start taking responsibility for what then I did believe. So I was able to change them. And the art of possibility talks a lot about taking that responsibility. And it's okay to make errors. It's okay not to know. It's okay to not be perfect. And just the last one, I'll go with "Daring Greatly" as well to give a female voice to the books as well, and whose name escapes me at the moment as well.
All right. I like that. And Johnny, imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do? And what would you tell him not to do?
Well, I would tell him to go ahead and do what he's going to do. So go ahead and get your ass kicked for a few years and then come back and see me when you're ready to hear something. Because there was no way you would have talked to me. There was no way I would have been able to talk to myself. I would have said, guess you're in for a huge ass kicking. You're in for a really rough time. You're going to do a bunch of great shit and you won't even appreciate it. But go at it. Have some fun. And when you're ready, talk to me. So that's what I would tell him to do. What not to do? Once again, if you can't tell him to do something, I'm certainly not going to tell him not to do something.
Right. And Johnny, just kind of wrapping up and summarizing some of the main points here, what's your philosophy on life and success?
I've been diving more and more into stoicism as of lately. Just because when you start finding the roots of things that you like, and it always ends up going to the Greek philosophers. But things don't have to be a fight. In fact, things can be quite easy. Life can be quite easy. And you can be quite happy and quite successful if you allow yourself to live an easy life. If you try to hide insecurities, try to be somebody you're not, this is a lot of work. It's not only is it a lot of work, it's very exhausting, and it leads to being unhappy, which slowly starts to lead to depression. And once you're in depression, that can lead to as many bad things as you allow it to lead to, including hurting yourself. So it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, it could be extremely easy. And I'm sure this podcast has great advice in it. not only can it be quite easy, quite enjoyable, and quite fun. And once again, I think it shows in our classroom. You were there; you could see it on all of the instructors how much fun we have just in every day hanging out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys have been doing this quite a few years now, and it felt like when I was there, I was one of your first students.
Oh yeah, well we started this. We're working on I think 8 years. So in fact I'm losing count now. So much.
All right, and Johnny, what's exciting you today? What's really getting you out of bed in the morning?
Wow. I'm very involved in music here in Los Angeles. So I have quite a couple projects going. I get to play in town here at a lot of the clubs in town, and be part to me being part of the Los Angeles Hollywood history of music, even at 40 years old, still fires me up and still makes me feel like 15 years old watching MTV with my guitar on the couch. That is so much fun. And then alongside of that, I have the development of this company and watching it grow. And here we are 8 years from now, or 8 years from the start. And if for every year it continually changes and morphs, and I just love waking up every day, seeing where it goes. And I know when you talk to AJ later this summer, he's going to have a lot of things to say about that as well. It's fantastic, and of course, the best TV show on the planet is every week watching a new group of you guys come in. I mean, there's not no better entertainment than that.
Yeah, definitely. I had a really good time at the program. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect when I first got there, and I was really surprised at how it was just this really nice, clean apartment right on Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, right when you walk out of the door, you're standing on Walt Disney's Hollywood, his star on the floor.
Yeah.
And, you can actually see the Hollywood sign from the window of the apartment as we're just getting instruction. It's like you're in Hollywood. It's
great.
just such a great environment. And not only that, but you're surrounded by like-minded guys who come in from, all around the country and even the world with everyone just has their own different professional careers. We had like a mathematician, there was a real estate investor, there was a lawyer, there was an engineer. So it was just this really cool group of guys, and you get to go out and implement everything that you just learned from all the instructors.
Oh, it's a blast. And there's still there's still stigma on, having therapy, and there's still stigma on getting life coaching, and there's still stigma on having somebody to talk to. And I think it just comes from this bad place of Viking mentality for us guys. And, when you're in that room and you realize, wow, all these other guys are really rad. Looks like it's just going to turn into one big crazy fun party all week. That's really what it is. I mean, we have a lot of fun in class. The class is spent laughing and carrying on and opening up with these silly stories about ourselves and where we all came from, and then putting together, I guess, methodologies, these ideologies of moving forward, of some ways of going about stuff, and feeling good about that path, and knowing no one's perfect. We're going to mess up from time to time, but that's part of the fun. And of course, the unity you feel with those guys, not only with those guys in the room, you have the guys that are on our family page who are from the Art of Charm, from 8 years of classes. It's rad. It's a lot of fun. It's, knowing all these great, awesome professional people from all over the world.
Right. And I'll be honest, I came into the program with quite a bit of experience, having been to other men's programs, been taking massive action for the past few years on this area of my life, and just fully immersed myself in this arena. So, I really just came to see what would happen and just to have fun. But what really happened was I ended up learning a ton. There's something for everyone in the program. I mean, I watch really shy guys walk in and open up, and at the end they had these transformations at the end of the week. So I saw transformation with myself throughout the whole program.
Yeah.
And there was something to learn. The little tweaks can change your entire game.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's of course designed that way, and it's been tweaked from 8 years of doing this. But thing, what we wanted most was anyone who decides that they come for this should have a rad time and discover something. And that's what it's always been about. And it's also built on how far do you want to take it within yourself. You can push yourself as hard as you want. And we don't get on anybody's cases about what they do or don't do in the class or what they do in field. Of course, we're going to encourage you, but it's up to you yourself.
Yeah, you definitely get what you put into it. I mean, how much work you put into yourself and how open you are to the program is really going to determine the results that you get. But you got to keep in mind, you're surrounded by some really awesome people who are also going to be taking action. So, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So you're going to be pushing yourself.
Oh yeah, but the great thing is that the guys who come in are ready to push themselves. They're ready to have fun, and it's great seeing that. Is everyone nervous when they first walk in the doors? Absolutely. I don't think it'd be anyone who wouldn't be. But as you said, once you meet the other guys, once you see the place, it's fantastic. Everyone loosens up pretty much halfway through the first day.
Yeah, it happens really quickly. I mean, there's so many activities and exercises that you're doing, so you end up, building rapport relatively quickly. So if there's anyone here interested in learning more about the Art of Charm 6-day attraction program or any of their other programs, I've been working with Jordan Harbinger. He's one of the other founders of the Art of Charm, and I worked it out so you can get direct access to him. So I made a special link. You can go to knowledgeformen.com/AOC. That's knowledgeformen.com/AOC. And that'll give you direct access to Jordan Harbinger. If you have any questions, if you wanted to follow up or get more information about the program, check it out and be sure to mention Knowledge for Men. Let them know that you came from this podcast. Well, Johnny, go ahead and give yourself a plug so the audience can connect with you in the future going forward.
I'm on Twitter. It's at Dzubak, at DZUBAK, twitter.com, whatever. And then you can always write me at johnny@theartofcharm.com. I try to answer all of my emails. If I don't get it, I'm pretty crazy busy with everything that I'm into, but I try to make sure that I make time to answer questions and yeah, you can. And of course, you know what? At some point, I'm going to have to do a Facebook fan sort of page, I guess. But as of right now, I still have plenty of room for cool people to friend me on there.
All right, Johnny, thank you so much for sharing your story and your life lessons with my community here at Knowledge for Men. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Andrew, and thank you for coming in. I want to commend you on being so rad and having so much fun. And it's quite funny, and you didn't even give off that vibe. People who do feel like, well, I'm going to be much more advanced than the guys in this class. You didn't give off that vibe whatsoever. In fact, you fit right in with all the guys, and that's rad. And that's, if anyone, it's hard not to be judgmental because we're all programmed to be judgmental, but it's not a good place to come from, and that certainly doesn't allow you to grow as a person. So you were super rad to have at the camp, and you definitely did what you needed to do to get the most out of it, and you were rad to have there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And guys, that's going to wrap up episode 67 with Johnny Dzubak. All right, guys, and the action item I have for today is check out the program. Learn more about this program. I think that you can get a ton of value. I experienced it. All the guys that I went with experienced a great program and learned a ton. I watched, like I said, extremely shy guys walk in and get transformed. I myself been to many other programs and been working on this area of my life for a while, so I'd consider myself, I guess you call it quote unquote more advanced, and I still got a ton. So there's something for everyone. And if you want to connect with Jordan Harbinger, you can do so if you go to knowledgeformen.com/AOC. That's knowledgeformen.com/AOC. You guys, I've been to a ton of events, and this is one that's good and one that I recommend. It's good to invest in yourself. There's so many things you can spend with your money, and it's good to invest in yourself. You can buy a new car or down payment on a car, or you can move into a nicer place, or you can go and get some new clothes at the mall. You can buy a new watch, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that thing you purchased isn't going to really mean anything to you. You're going to have to buy something else again and again. So I've always believed that the best investment you can make is the one in yourself. So if you're interested in the program, you can check out knowledgeformen.com/AOC. All right, guys, until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.